Those snipers had become a curse along the ridge. 3 spotters gone in 48 hours. Teams sent to punch holes in the map only to come back with more questions than answers. 12 minutes after Rowan Kale finished studying the chart, 4 enemy positions were compromised, 6 marksmen were helplessly outmaneuvered, and an entire approach to counter-sniper work was rewritten, all without Rowan firing a single round. The SEALs who had murmured that the assignment was impossible fell silent as she walked off the ridgeline, rifle on her back and confidence like an old habit. What they didn't know was that she'd been raised by a man who spent 30 years teaching Marine Scout snipers, and she'd inherited more than his last name. Rowan was 27. In a forward ops tent outside Jalalabad when the SEAL team leader, Lieutenant Commander Voss, outlined the problem. A network of sniper positions dug into the mountains above the supply route, firing each morning with deadly precision. The tent smelled of sweat and stale coffee. Maps were pinned and repinned, red circles marking where troops had been hit in the past 72 hours. Rowan listened, sleeves rolled, Ranger tab above her pocket, 75th Ranger scroll on her shoulder. Her job was listed on paper as 13F, Fire Support Specialist, attached to interdiction operations along the Pakistan border. Her real specialty was something else, finding people who did not want to be found. She asked one question, and the tent tilted inward. Why were they trying to engage the snipers directly instead of tracking their patterns? Voss blinked. He'd been told his men had tried everything. He'd been told they were facing professionals who didn't make mistakes. He asked if Rowan had a miracle. She asked for the casualty reports and the precise coordinates of where shots had come from. He slid a folder across the table and watched her thumb through rows of ink and grid lines like a man watching a surgeon examine an X-ray. Rowan pointed out something simple and overlooked. Every engagement happened within a 2-hour window after sunrise, and the points clustered on east-facing slopes. In plain language, the shooters were using the sun, its angle, its glare, to mask muzzle flash and thermal signatures. That fact narrowed everything. Where the sun and the terrain aligned, only a handful of positions would provide the same tactical advantage. She estimated no more than 6 likely sites along a 3-kilometer stretch. Someone laughed, a SEAL who thought the skinny soldier with the quiet voice was indulging a theory. Rowan did not laugh. She told Voss she could find and neutralize each site in 12 minutes if he let her run a small surgical team and stopped treating snipers like targets for brute force. Voss made a call, moved the bureaucracy through a single conditional approval, and told her she had until dawn to prove it. Rowan walked to the edge of the perimeter and remembered the range where she'd grown up. Her father, Gunnery Sergeant Ethan Kale, had taught at a private long-range school outside 29 Palms and had shown her how to read wind like a book and spot a firing position in 100 yards of rocks. He'd taught her to be patient. He had not pushed her to enlist. His death when she was 19 made the Army feel like the only way to honor what she'd learned. She'd gone through Fort Benning and Ranger, school, and wound up where people who could think 3 steps ahead were often dismissed until they had to be listened to. At 2 in the morning, she moved out with 4 others, 2 recon-savvy Rangers she trusted, a combat engineer who specialized in route denial charges, and a combat medic on standby with SIVAC protocols in place. They approached from the west, the sniper's blind side, and used handheld thermal monoculars to scan the eastern slopes in the chilling pre-dawn. The trick was not to hunt for a flash or a living silhouette. The trick was to identify the signs of occupation: disturbed earth, camo netting flattened in a particular way, residual warmth in a firing position used hours earlier. By 0430, Rowan had marked 3 sites. By 05, she found 2 more. Each fit her pattern: eastern exposure, elevated sight lines, and natural overhead concealment. Rowan briefed the team in whispers. The engineer would place charges to collapse access galleries, seal cave mouths, and break the narrow trails that allowed the snipers to move. The objective was denial and containment, not lethal engagement. Collapsing passages cut egress and mobility, turning positions into traps without unnecessary bloodshed or the collateral damage that would invite propaganda winds. The Rangers took up observation points to confirm occupancy with thermal scopes. Rowan synchronized timing over a hushed radio net and ran through the rules of engagement in her head. Low civilian risk. Intelligence preserved, lives prioritized. At 0547, as the sun crested and the shooters readied their morning hunts, 6 controlled detonations severed the routes the snipers counted on. Rocks tumbled into tunnels, wooden trail bridges buckled, and every path out of those firing nests was suddenly gone. The men inside were not killed. They were trapped. For 12 minutes, the valley held its breath. Then Rowan radioed back. All positions neutralized. No friendly casualties. No enemy KIA. Mission complete. When she re-entered the ops tent at 0620, the SEALs were gathered around the radio with an expression Rowan recognized as stunned respect. Voss asked how she had done it. She traced the route on the map and explained in plain tactical terms the sun angle, the thermal masking, and why closing mobility was smarter than opening fire. One of his men asked why she hadn't just called in an airstrike. Rowan answered the way her father had taught her. The smartest fight is the one you don't have to take. Making the enemy irrelevant is sometimes better than making them dead. The detainees were processed over the next 48 hours by specialists, EOD, crowd clear engineers, and military intelligence, and the network's role in a year of ambushes came into clearer focus. Rowan's small operation became a case study. Voss wrote her up for commendation. The battalion commander asked her to stay on as an advisor for sniper mitigation. It wasn't a promotion with rank or a new MOS. It was recognition that practical thinking could save lives. Rowan stayed another 4 months in theater, teaching the method that had worked: pattern analysis, patient observation, and using the enemy's choices against them. She never fired her weapon in anger during that time. She did not need to. The lesson her father had given her, patience as a weapon, the advantage of thinking before acting, proved truer than any single marksmanship drill. On return, she received a Bronze Star for tactical innovation. The citation spoke of tactical acumen and mission success. It did not bother with the detail that 4 people, 12 minutes, and no shots fired had been the real measure of success. 2 years later, she left active duty and started Kale Range Solutions, teaching police and military units to hunt hunters differently. Every class began with the same principle: the person who waits and thinks will always beat the person who rushes and reacts.